Instead, we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
I mean, my name's Sam, the Revolution Club, Bay Area. I think actually what's troubling is this sort of empathy that's brought up around the horrors that happened to people in the Holocaust is then being used to justify crimes against another group of people, So I think one of the things we're out here challenging people on is, look, if you truly feel that empathy or sympathy with people who were so viciously persecuted and murdered, right? I was raised Jewish. My family members who were survivors of the Holocaust, right? And I was always taught that never again, right? And I think the point is never again to anybody, So to use this the Holocaust and these feelings of maybe empathy or sadness or grief or these things to then justify deeper crimes, deep crimes against another people, is really beyond hypocrisy. It's a horror, and so that's why we're out here today. That's why we have this banner that says, after the Holocaust, the worst thing to happen to the Jewish people is the state of Israel, because it's sort of, it's meant to be provocative, and it's also challenging, that it's not just what happens to people physically, it's where people end up standing morally, that we have to be able to address, right? And for Jewish people who were so physically and in a very real way, oppressed and persecuted, right? To then have with this siding with the state of Israel, brings a morality that's just crushing to people, right? And to have that morality, I think, is something that we're standing against, and trying to break people out of, right?
You're wanting care for everyone's well-being. Everyone.
Yeah, we think people's lives are no more valuable here or anybody around the world, and it's not a matter of comparing who suffered worse or who this or that is, but it is at a certain point a question of who is wreaking the most damage around the planet, and we do need to stand up against these crimes, and if we truly have concern for the people of the world, then I think that requires you to take a stand. And I don't think at the same time, I think it's a little bit problematic. We can't just be empathetic in a sort of vague universal sense, because I think there are sides here, and I think while I know that people have personal stories and issues and ideas of their own in different ways, we do have to sort of pull the telescope back and look at what's actually going on. What is sort of the
like you said, that some groups of people have certain needs and other groups may have different needs.
Yeah,
and you're wanting to honor the needs of each group.
Yeah, and I think we have to be able to differentiate and decide, like, there's oppressors and there's people that are oppressed, right? And we can't just come to it and say that this is complex and we're just sort of all like on neutral ground, I think.
And I'm really wanting to understand this, because this is really important to me. When you say oppressors, is it like, are you saying people who have taken power in a certain way, and that you are wanting the least use of restrictive power over other people as possible?
Yeah, I mean, although even that, I don't think you could say universally, but I do think...
or like
I think
sharing of resources?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, we're communists. We think everybody, we're fighting for a world where it's from each according to their ability to each according to their needs, where people's basic needs are met, and there's enough resources on the planet to do that. We're out here, we consider ourselves emancipators of humanity, not just, fighters for the U.S., the people of the U.S. or of this nation or that nation. We're internationalists. We're, out here for the people of the world. And
ask you, what role does empathy play in your own personal life and your relationships, kind of with people?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to look at people as human beings, right, and understand. I mean, I'm a school teacher. I think that it's important to be able to pull the telescope back and look at where people are coming from, and recognize the things that when you look kind of close up, it's easy to see a narrow perspective and miss the big picture, right, and not realize where people are coming from. And And I guess to me, that's where, I got motivated to be, to be an activist in a fight against the system, that initially stemmed from feeling really terrible about the things that I saw around the world, I saw people suffering in different parts of the globe, and I didn't know why, but I knew it was terrible and wrong, and I felt an empathy too, with those people, right? And
you remember the story of when that happened? What actually happened?
I mean,
you had that insight.
I just very young, even seeing people on the streets of New York City who are homeless, and feeling like, something's wrong here, where's our humanity, and not knowing why or how to address it, but really feeling like torn up inside, and then you look at the rest of the world and you see, what happened to the Native American people in this country, what's happening still to black people in this country, and I think it needs, we need to, at the same time, empathy is very important, but we also need to go beyond that. We need to understand we can't just have like a universal vague sense of empathy. We need to actually get at like where these crimes are coming from, why people are suffering, and actually do the work to try to figure out if we could put an end to this, People come out that...
Clarity about how different things happen.
It matters why, it's not just a matter of like, Native people suffered, so like let's just feel really bad for them and like feel good about ourselves because we feel bad or something, or feel terrible and then feel, I think it's at a certain point people have an obligation to dive in and try to understand the world that they live in, what's going on, and find solutions in that. And for me, I think that's revolution. I think that's getting rid of this whole system that I think wreaks havoc on the planet and doesn't. Capitalism is a system that.
In a place where everyone's needs matter.
Yeah, capitalism is it's just you look at it.
And you're wanting effective strategies that really besides talk nice and talk pretty, you're wanting strategies that really address that it's all about everyone's needs matter. Yeah.
And to do that, I think that requires, a revolution, a real revolution.
Big change. Yeah. The status quo.
Structural changes.
Well, a revolution is the overthrow of a class and of a system, right? So, and that's where I sort of universally, I think, this idea of empathy. Like, there are people, and you can look at examples of the South, right, before the Civil War and leading through the Civil War into Reconstruction, right? Like, the U.S. government actually had to use force and actually had to put people down if they were actually going to liberate black people.
Protective use of force.
Yeah, if you wanted to actually...
That could potentially be a part of the strategy.
Right, if you actually wanted, black children to go to the same schools as white people, you couldn't say, well, let's just let everyone decide and let's just, everyone will figure it out. No, there was a role for, coercion in that sense. And, I think we need to look, if we're realistic about bringing about a radically different society, then we need to be realistic about that there will be the same issues, We can't let people who are willing to,
I'm hearing that you're wanting integrity with what people say.
Yeah.
There's a real integrity to it. That when people say something, they're going to do something, and people make an agreement that they
See the world through other people's eyes. Empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.